Hello, this is Pastor Rick, and I want to welcome you to Lectionary Plus in preparation for worship this Sunday, October the 12th. We have two marvelous healing texts for this Sunday, and so the Sunday will really lift up this major topic in the church of healing. The texts are from 2 Kings 5, 1-3, 7-15c, and Luke 17, 11-19. Now let me start with Luke 17, because this is a story we know, where 10 people with leprosy come to Jesus, and he heals them. And what's interesting about the passage is that then they all scurry off home, obviously to share the good news with their families. When you had leprosy, you were isolated from the community. No one wanted to be near you. And we even have those sayings today. You know, you treat someone like they have leprosy. In other words, you ostracize them. You put them outside the town. And so often, these people would live in caves. They were isolated. People were afraid they were contagious. Now, 9 go home. 1, though, seeing that they're healed, come back to Jesus and then asks and expresses gratitude and says thank you. Now, what's interesting about the one person who comes back is that they're a foreigner. All right, not from Israel, but a foreigner living in Israel. And so Jesus makes comment to that fact that, all right, wow, is it only the foreigner who comes back and expresses gratitude? So now this is interesting, this whole healing a foreigner in Israel, because it's the same theme that we're going to find in our text from 2 Kings. And here it's a military general, Naaman. He's wealthy, he's prosperous, he's a good general, he's well respected, not just in the military, but in society. And he comes down with leprosy as well. So here we have not just a poor person, because usually leprosy is a disease of the poor, even to this day. But here Naaman is wealthy. He eats the best food. He obviously lives a healthy lifestyle. That's what it appear. And yet he comes down with leprosy too. Now I'm going to tie in these two texts. But first, I have to say that many commentators think that leprosy was a broad term for a lot of different skin diseases, contagious skin diseases possibly at that time. So one questions now, is what we're reading here, the leprosy that we're reading about, the same back in the day as it is today? And many think it's a different disease, serious because it was contagious, but nevertheless something different. Anyway, so here Naaman doesn't know what to do, and a servant comes and says, I know a healer, Elisha, in Israel. So go down to Israel, ask the king permission to speak with the prophet, and he can heal you. So Naaman does that, and he writes a letter to the king saying, give me permission to come into your land. I want to be healed. The king of Israel is upset because he says, oh, you're setting me up for failure, because what if the prophet doesn't heal you? Then you're going to want to take it out on me. But Naaman comes down with wealth to pay off Elisha. Finally, he gets permission from the king. And Elisha gives him something very simple to do. And in a way, it was below the dignity of Naaman that he was asked to do something simple, because here he is, a grand figure, prominent, and now he's being treated kind of simply. And the advice he receives is, well, if he asked you, Elisha, to do something grand and glorious and difficult, wouldn't you have done it? Just follow the prophet. And we know he does, and he is healed. And so here we've got healing texts, in both cases, healing foreigners of leprosy or whatever contagious disease, skin disease that they have. And so all sorts of questions arise that will be lifted up in our sermon. So now we want to hear from Pastor Lillard as he lifts up a couple points that he might be emphasizing this Sunday during his sermon. Pastor Lillard?
Hi, everybody. I'm Pastor Lillard Emmanuel. Welcome to Lectionary Plus, where I tell you I'm going to preach on Sunday, but upon what am I going to base my thoughts and my message? It is from the Gospel according to St. Luke, the 17th chapter, And Jesus is knowingly making his way to Jerusalem, where he knows that all the political leaders, the religious elite, are conspiring against him to put him to death. With that in the back of his mind, he's going through this village. And you remember the story? We were told this story in Sunday school and confirmation, and we've heard it how many different times. He went in and 10 lepers saw Jesus. So the gospel is the 17th chapter, which means word had spread about this Jesus who could take someone who couldn't walk and make him or her walk or run. Couldn't see, now can see. Couldn't talk, now could talk. And they thought to themselves, maybe it can happen to us. So they see Jesus, they think about this, they hope. They've probably seen all kinds of physicians, done everything, consumed every potion, and they ask Jesus simply, have mercy on us. And Jesus says very quickly, go, present yourself, show yourself to the priests, which was part of the rabbinical law of the day, is that he was following the law of Moses, where you're supposed to, if you had leprosy, go to the priest, you would show your skin, the priest would deem you clean or not clean, and whether or not you could go back to your old life. As they were on their way, because they listened to Jesus, they respected him, they were on their way to see the priest, and they noticed that they were healed. 10 of them. And the story goes that 9 of them continued to go on their way, perhaps go back and hug their spouse and hug their kids and go back and see their mom and dad. And one of them stopped, turned around, went back to Jesus, knelt in front of him, and gave him thanks. And Jesus said, didn't I heal 10? Where are the other 9? Your faith has made you well. Now go and live. Now, of course, we can look at this and say, well, summarily, it's very, very clear. Don't be like the 9, be like the 1, so go do it. But we're Lutheran, and we know that we're sinners, and we know that we're complex being. The reality of the situation is, in our life, we are sometimes the 9, and sometimes we're the 1. But Jesus is always Jesus. All 10 were healed, and Jesus didn't say, well, because you weren't thankful to the 9, I'm going to make you have leprosy again, or give you some other kind of disease. The point of the story, I think, is that Jesus is always kind. Jesus is always full of mercy. We're messy. Sometimes we're good. Sometimes we're not good. Sometimes we remember and sometimes we forget. But Jesus is always Jesus at the same time. And this is the beauty of being a Lutheran. We know that we are called to be the 1, even though sometimes we're the 9, but we are to strive to remember every single day of our life. High water, low water, good day, bad day, sick or healthy, young or old, Jesus is the source of our goodness and our healing. And every day we give thanks for the presence and the love and the forgiveness and the healing of Jesus in many and various ways. To hear the rest of my thoughts, see you in worship on Sunday. Meantime, be well. God bless.